Hi, y'all. Meteorologist Andy Hill here at the forecasting desk with an in depth forecast and reasons why on what will soon be Hurricane Idalia, and a major one at that, bringing imminent concerns to the peninsula of Florida through Tuesday night, the 29th of August, into Wednesday morning, the 30th. People in much of the southern and eastern half of Georgia and the Carolinas will want to pay close attention to the track of this hurricane as well, for excessive rainfall concerns Wednesday through Thursday. Additionally, Central Florida up through the Georgia and Carolina coast will be concerned with tornadoes, tropical tornadoes, on Tuesday and Wednesday. These will occur in the spiral bands, the legs of Idalia on the outside there. Now, virtually every hurricane spawns tornadoes in these outer bands, so I want to make sure all interested parties are aware of their respective risks for their areas. To reinforce that, something to catch your attention is this. Idalia has a lot of forecast similarities to Hurricane Michael of 2018. I'll explain why in just a minute, but let's start with the most important details first, and I'll give you my personal landfall forecast. So, by the time you listen to this video, we will either have or very soon have hurricane warnings in place of where the hurricane watches are up the western peninsula of Florida, from south of Tampa near Inglewood up through the Big Bend to the Ocklawahnee Bay. These warnings being issued here will be for likely to certain hurricane conditions and related impacts being felt within 36 hours of the warning issuance. As of this morning, a much expected trend in the National Hurricane Center's official forecast has occurred, to where we're now expecting a Category 3 hurricane prior to landfall, with the potential to intensify further all the way up until it makes landfall. So to explain the cone here, this signifies that 66% of the time, or 2/3 of the time, the center or eye of the storm will fall within the white highlighted area. But even still, impacts will be felt well outside of the path, such as storm surge and intense rainfall into the Carolinas. So at this stage, my forecasted landfall point of Hurricane Idalia, where average error is still about 100 miles, is somewhere in between the Steinhatchee to Homosassa Springs, Florida areas. And that forecasted landfall point here will be Wednesday morning. The intensity of Hurricane Idalia for my forecast will be steadily growing and intensifying in a rapid regime in line with the National Hurricane Center's thoughts. So this is a complex forecast for several reasons. Let's dive into them. Hurricane Franklin here is a Category 4 hurricane at the moment, and it's also a fish storm, meaning it's unlikely to impact many humans outside of eastern Newfoundland well down the line, as it's already weakened quite a bit. It's about 1,000 miles away from Hurricane Idalia, which is too far away to have any major tug, but it can't be completely ruled out for a minor contribution to Idalia's path. It would do so by slightly tilting the driving winds of Idalia toward the center of Franklin, a preliminary step to the Fujiwara effect if the storms were closer together. Next, I'll explain the beta effect. The beta effect is going to drive Idalia to the north, but also give a slight westward push to its path, and that will take place over the next 18 to 24 hours in particular. This is because the developing hurricane will have gyres, or mini spinnies, on the edge here and also down here. Due to the rotation of the Earth, this locally higher pressure right here will form and push Idalia this direction, while this locally lower pressure will also form and push Idalia this direction. This means that on the southwestern side of the circulation, we do have winds trying to go to the north and west, in addition to the same direction on the north and east side of the circulation. This effect is quite minor compared to steering winds in general, but it does exist, especially before this next part comes into play. By this evening, the beta effect will take a backseat to a trough interaction, which will accelerate the storm much more quickly along this path drawn on the arrow. The trough, or an area of low pressure, digs down through the southeastern states while Idalia passes through, bringing some drier air along a cold front. Once that front gets there, seen here on this map of dew points at the surface, it'll be a lot more comfortable for northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, and through the Midwest to mid-Atlantic states, where dew points of 55 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit will bring comfortable conditions. But everyone here should keep your neighbors in Florida and the eastern Carolinas in mind. As the trough swings through the Florida panhandle here, It'll accelerate then Hurricane Idalia to the north, before also starting to swing it to the east along that cold front I mentioned. So this shows a map of moisture from about 2 miles to 6 miles above your heads. And if you look closely, you can watch the sopping wet air in green from Idalia be pushed up to the north and away from it through the Carolinas. These winds pushing the moisture north are oriented parallel with the track of Idalia rather than perpendicular to it, meaning they aren't tearing it apart from side to side. This tells me that the storm will be in a supportive environment, with air being pushed out of the top of it, meaning more air must rise up to replace that. That intensifies the storm via lower pressure, which will accelerate the winds and give us a higher category rating. And unfortunately, this is where the Michael parallel draws in. This is exactly what happened to Hurricane Michael. A trough interaction pushed all of that air succinctly off with its path to the north, meaning that it kept moving into very humid air out in front of it. That means the center of the hurricane in Michael's case, and now in Idalia's case, will not have to deal with a bunch of dry air as it intensifies. Thus, there aren't really many factors that will combat Idalia's growth, other than the wind shear seen in this chart. Areas in yellow to red are unfavorable wind shear for the storm, but you can watch the winds literally part ways for Idalia's rite of passage right through this black oval. And once that happens, Idalia is free to rapidly intensify with the incredible heat content in the Gulf of Mexico at its disposal. If you've watched other weather videos here on YouTube in the last 6 months or so, chances are at some point you've heard the Gulf is roasting, and so on. That, seen here on this map of ocean heat content, is unfortunately being taken advantage of in a disastrous way. So, with that in mind, now, the most important outcomes of this event are the impacts to land and people. First off, a hurricane's worst component is always the flooding. The Weather Prediction Center already has a moderate risk, or a 3 out of 4, for excessive rainfall in the red here for Tuesday night through Wednesday as well, where, according to this graphic along those same areas, many in the northern Florida Peninsula, southeastern Georgia, and the eastern Carolinas will see over half a foot in rain. So in addition to the primary track of rainfall here, storm surge will also be a major problem. The surge forecast shown here from National Hurricane Center is literally just the rise in sea level. So as the hurricane pushes a wall of water toward the coast, waves will also continue to happen on top of that wall of water, which is what makes storm surge so dangerous and why it's a major forecast index from the National Hurricane Center. The expected tide is also factored into this forecast. But on top of that, I think there will be some locally worse impacts that result from wind direction around the low pressure center of the hurricane. As the low tracks toward the coast wherever it makes landfall, air is flowing counterclockwise around it, which means winds will drive water on shore on the south and eastern side of the eye, and they'll also likely suck some of the water off the coast and out of the bays temporarily here on the northwest side. We saw both of these actions occur with Hurricane Ian last year, and also I've seen it in many hurricanes in the past. The worst of the winds will be highly localized to a coastal area and just inland wherever the hurricane makes landfall. Wherever it does make landfall, whether it's within my forecast or generally within the cone from the National Hurricane Center, extreme wind warnings will be issued along the coast from the National Weather Service, encapsulating the risk area. However, given the broad wind field, I expect tropical force storm winds to cause widespread power outages through the northern half of the Florida Peninsula as it passes through. Something to note about the winds is the expected size of the storm itself. It's far more likely from my perspective that this will be a larger hurricane due to its formation now. You can see a large, growing, and swirling area of thunderstorms here that will persist and keep the wind field spread out quite a bit, especially with these spiral bands developing. This means that the strong winds and heavy rain will be felt well outside of that cone from the National Hurricane Center, and it's happening primarily because the storm is in an extremely humid, monsoon-driven environment. They continue to fan out and increase in size and will do so until the hurricane begins to accelerate off to the north and east. Thereafter, Idalia won't weaken that fast compared to hurricanes we've seen in the past. Once inland, it's forecast to maintain hurricane intensity while weakening, even as it reaches the state line of Georgia in the southeast part of the state. Hurricane force winds are unlikely after that point as it tracks toward the Carolina coast. It seems to be maintaining quite a bit of its strength due to how much it's expected to intensify, and also the marshlands that it's going to track over, giving it some retaining energy choppy while inland. So because of this, I think the Georgia coast and northeastern Florida will actually see quite a few power outages. Please be ready for that due to the winds. And of course, the Storm Prediction Center has already been on top of their game with a slight risk for tornadoes starting Tuesday for this area here in Brown, including Tampa, through the western Orlando metro, up through Ocala and Gainesville. This will almost certainly be realized as the tornado threat persists to the north and east of Idalia's path. That means the tornado threat on Wednesday will include northeast Florida, up through Savannah, Georgia, and all the way up the South Carolina coast toward Wilmington, North Carolina. For each day's tornado risk, a couple rounds of tornadic storms are possible as each spiral band or leg of the hurricane passes through these areas while it moves off to the north and east. One of the most important takeaways is that the tornado threat will exist through the day each day and into the nighttime. So by far and away, the best method to deal with that is having multiple ways to receive warnings, especially one way to wake up to warnings. And that's so you're alert and prepared for these threats, even away from the center of the hurricane and the main flooding impacts. Tropical tornadoes are typically on the weaker side of things, as they are not sustained by powerful updrafts like in the plains, but instead rather drenching and highly sheared supercells. Through the bands of the storm like this. Even then, they are still 100% worth being prepared for. Lastly, on Idalia, I'll show you the progression of outlook since it was first indicated as an area of interest 5 days ago here in this graphic. You can see pretty good consistency of the track into the Big Bend of Florida, from Friday's advisory to Saturday's advisory here to Sunday, with the most significant change being an eastward shift in this morning's update on Monday. This eastward shift occurred in the most recent update as the storm intensified and developed a dominant low-level center amidst all of these thunderstorms in this loop you can see here. That formed near the most robust thunderstorms on the eastern side, which then fanned out quickly to the west. You can see that in the loop. So this new low-level center here, combined with the Hurricane Hunter airplane missions getting in-situ observations, have given us the best look at the storm and what it's most likely to do. Now, if you know someone in Taiwan or in Hong Kong, at the same time as Idalia's exit from the Carolinas, Typhoon Saola will likely bring heavy impacts to the southern half of Taiwan. It will also likely bring quite a bit of rainfall to Hong Kong and southern China through the weekend. So please be ready for that also as we go through this week. Late August is a wild ride. Hopefully you found this update useful among the extreme response that so many are ushering out on this expected hurricane. I strive to give you analysis of unique elements surrounding this hurricane and its path. If those struck you, consider joining the channel, like these fine folk in the lightning tier have. I'll be starring in Ryan's stream Tuesday night through Wednesday morning Eastern US time, so catch my direct efforts there in Hurricane Idalia coverage. Until then, stay safe, y'all.